Hello everyone, and welcome to my General Hospital official channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up.
The day in Port Charles begins with tension simmering just beneath the surface, and by the time the sun sets, relationships are tested, shocking truths edge closer to exposure, and familiar characters find themselves making decisions they never expected. General Hospital has built its reputation on twists, betrayals, and deeply emotional confrontations, and the midweek installment airing Wednesday, October 1st, 2025, promises no shortage of drama. The episode opens quietly enough, but every interaction is laced with suspense as characters circle around secrets that threaten to unravel the carefully built balance in their lives. At the Quartermaine mansion, Monica tries to bring some order to the chaos, reminding everyone that the family name carries weight and responsibility. But even as she delivers her lecture, Ned and Olivia remain distracted, speaking in hushed tones about Leo and the uncertainty of the family's financial future. Brooke Lynn, torn between her loyalty to her father and her desire to make her own path, struggles to stay out of the fray. The Quartermaines thrive on power struggles, but today feels different. There's an air of impending change, as though one decision could alter the trajectory of the entire family legacy. Over at the hospital, Elizabeth notices Finn is unusually withdrawn. She asks if he's simply tired, but Finn avoids her gaze and mutters about a backlog of cases. In truth, Finn is battling a resurgence of old demons, and his recent choices have left him in a precarious place. Elizabeth, sensing that something is deeply wrong, contemplates whether to push harder or respect his privacy. Their relationship has weathered storms, but lately, Elizabeth wonders if they are drifting apart despite her best efforts to hold them together. Her instincts tell her that Finn is hiding more than stress, and the shadow of his past addiction looms once again as a silent threat that could destroy not only his career but his bond with her. Meanwhile, at Charlie's pub, Christina busies herself behind the bar, trying to keep her focus on the bustling lunch crowd, but her thoughts are elsewhere. She still hasn't fully processed the bombshell Jason dropped on her earlier in the week, and her conflicted emotions threaten to overwhelm her. When Alexis stops by, Christina attempts casual conversation, but Alexis picks up immediately on her daughter's unease. The bond between mother and daughter has never been simple, and Alexis debates whether to push Christina into confessing what's weighing on her or wait until she's ready. For Christina, it's a losing battle either way. Keeping secrets from Alexis rarely works, yet sharing the truth about Jason's revelation could ripple through the entire Davis family in unpredictable ways. At the Metro Court, Carly stands by the bar, her phone in hand, waiting for a call that never seems to come. Her sharp eyes scan the lobby as if she's expecting danger at any moment, but her real anxiety comes from knowing Sunny's world has been spiraling out of her control. Nina approaches, trying to make small talk, but Carly shuts her down with clipped responses. There is still no love lost between the two women, and Carly's tolerance has grown thinner since Nina's betrayal resurfaced earlier this year. Carly insists she doesn't care about Nina's business, but her every gesture betrays her true feelings. She remains protective of Sunny, even though they've gone separate ways, and she knows that one misstep could pull him back into chaos. Elsewhere in town, Sunny meets with Dex in a shadowy corner of the warehouse district. Their conversation is hushed but intense, revolving around the growing threats from rival families who sense weakness in Sunny's organization. Dex tries to assure him that they have things under control, but Sunny isn't convinced. His instincts have been sharpened by years of danger, and he knows when trouble is brewing. He warns Dex to keep his eyes open, to trust no one, and to be ready for moves that could come at any hour. While Dex nods, his thoughts are conflicted. His loyalty to Sunny is undeniable, but the pressure of living this dangerous life has left him questioning his future. He knows that one slip could put him, and everyone he cares about, in mortal danger. Back at General Hospital, Anna crosses paths with Jordan, and the two former commissioners find themselves discussing the latest developments in an ongoing investigation. The case involves a series of suspicious shipments arriving at the Port Charles docks, and both women are convinced it ties back to organized crime. Anna is determined to get to the bottom of it, but she admits the lines have blurred in recent months. Too many familiar faces seem caught up in shady dealings, and Anna fears that someone close to her might be implicated. Jordan offers to help, but Anna is reluctant to share everything she knows. Secrets have a way of backfiring in Port Charles, and Anna is all too aware of how dangerous half-truths can become. Meanwhile, Trina struggles with her emotions as she sits on the steps outside Kelly's. Spencer has been gone for months, his absence leaving a gaping hole in her heart, but today she can't shake the sense that change is coming. Jocelyn arrives and sits beside her, offering comfort in the way only a best friend can. Their conversation drifts from classes to family drama, but inevitably it circles back to the men they've loved and lost. Joss is still reeling from the complicated truth about her family, and Trina admits she doesn't know if she'll ever feel whole again without Spencer. The two friends cling to each other in shared grief, even as life in Port Charles marches relentlessly forward. As the afternoon wears on, Port Charles becomes a web of intersecting secrets, each thread tightening around its characters. At Kelly's, Jocelyn tries to stay strong for Trina, but her own heart is weighed down by turmoil. She knows that her connection to Jason, and the truth that has come to light about their bond, could destroy her relationship with Dex if it ever comes out. Joss clings to the hope that she can keep everything under wraps, but her anxiety shows in the way she keeps checking her phone, half expecting a message from Jason, half dreading one. She insists to Trina that she's fine, but Trina knows her too well to believe it. For now, Trina lets it slide, realizing her best friend is just as lost as she is. At the Corinthos penthouse, Sunny arrives home to find Ava waiting. Their dynamic remains complicated, a mix of trust and suspicion that neither fully admits to. Ava tries to smooth things over by offering intel about one of Sunny's rivals, but he questions her motives. He knows Ava rarely does anything without an angle, and he reminds her that betrayal isn't something he forgives easily. Ava, bristling under his scrutiny, insists she's simply protecting herself and Avery. Still, their exchange is laced with tension, and Sunny wonders if having Ava so close to his family is a blessing or a liability. When she finally leaves, he pours himself a drink and stares out the window, the weight of his empire pressing heavily on his shoulders. At the hospital, Elizabeth finally corners Finn, refusing to let him brush her off. She presses him about his distant behavior, her voice tinged with both frustration and fear. Finn insists he's fine, but the tremor in his hands betrays him. Elizabeth's instincts scream that he's hiding a relapse, but when she asks him directly, he lashes out. The hurt in her eyes is immediate, and the hallway becomes a charged battleground as co-workers glance nervously at the escalating argument. Finn storms off before she can get through to him, leaving Elizabeth shaken. She wonders if their love is enough to withstand what's coming, or if she's about to lose him all over again. Meanwhile, Jason moves carefully through town, avoiding prying eyes. He knows the revelation about Joss being his biological daughter has opened a Pandora's box that can't be closed, and he's not sure how much longer the secret can be kept contained. Every choice he makes now carries the risk of alienating the people he loves most. He heads toward the bridge, a place that has always given him clarity, but even there he finds no peace. Memories of Carly, Sam, and the years of sacrifices flood his mind. Jason knows that once this truth fully comes out, nothing will ever be the same, and the fallout could fracture not only his bond with Joss but the fragile ties he has worked so hard to rebuild with Sunny and Carly. In another part of town, Alexis pays a visit to Diane. The two women share martinis and war stories from their legal careers, but Alexis's mind keeps circling back to Christina. She confesses that her daughter seems troubled, and Diane advises her to tread carefully. Diane reminds Alexis that Christina has always needed space to figure things out for herself, and pushing too hard could drive her further away. Still, Alexis can't shake her intuition that Christina is on the brink of confessing something huge, and she fears whatever it is will change the Davis family dynamic forever. At the Metro Court, Nina takes a call in her office, her voice rising as she argues with a Crimson staffer. She's been on edge ever since her last clash with Carly, and the stress is beginning to show. When Drew stops by, she tries to pull herself together, but he immediately sees through her mask. Drew warns her not to let Carly's hostility derail her focus, but Nina can't help it. The rivalry has consumed her for years, and every encounter leaves her shaken. Drew advises her to take a step back, but Nina isn't ready to concede any ground. For her, control is everything, and she refuses to let Carly win. Elsewhere, Chase checks in on Brooke Lynn, who has been brooding over her family drama. He gently teases her out of her funk, reminding her that the Quartermaine legacy doesn't define her worth. Brooke Lynn smiles at his attempts to lighten the mood, but she admits she feels torn between loyalty and independence. Chase, ever her steady anchor, assures her that she has the strength to make her own choices. Their moment of intimacy is sweet but brief, interrupted by a phone call that sends Chase rushing back to the precinct. Brooklyn watches him go, her heart swelling with both love and worry. She knows the danger that comes with his badge, and she silently prays he'll always come back to her. As night begins to fall, Port Charles seems cloaked in unease. At the police station, Jordan and Dante compare notes on the suspicious dock shipments. Dante is concerned that they might be tied to Sonny's organization, though he hesitates to say it outright. Jordan, perceptive as always, picks up on his reluctance and pushes him to confront the possibility head-on. Dante wrestles with the conflict between his duty as a cop and his complicated loyalty to his father. He doesn't want to believe Sonny could be involved, but the evidence is stacking up in ways he can't ignore. Their conversation leaves both uneasy, knowing that the truth may force Dante to make an impossible choice. Meanwhile, Trina returns home and finds a package waiting for her at the door. She frowns, not recognizing the sender, but curiosity gets the better of her. Inside, she discovers an old photograph of herself and Spencer, tucked inside an unmarked envelope. Her breath catches as she wonders who could have sent it and why. The gesture feels both intimate and ominous, and her heart races with the possibility that Spencer might be reaching out from afar, or that someone else is playing a cruel game with her emotions. She clutches the photo to her chest, torn between hope and fear, knowing that her life could change with a single revelation. Trina holds onto the photograph with trembling hands, her thoughts spinning in 1,000 directions. The ache in her chest feels almost unbearable as she stares at Spencer's smiling face frozen in time. Was this a message meant to reassure her, or a cruel trick designed to stir her grief? Her phone buzzes, startling her out of her daze, but when she sees it's only Jocelyn checking in, she decides not to mention the envelope just yet. Instead, she stuffs the photo into her journal and locks it away in her desk drawer, promising herself she'll deal with it tomorrow. Still, even as she tries to distract herself with homework, her mind refuses to settle. Every shadow in her room seems to whisper his name, and she knows deep down that Spencer's story in her life isn't over, not yet. Across town, Jason steps into Pozzolo's after hours, where the restaurant's familiar hum has quieted to silence. He meets Spinelli in the back room, and the two exchange a meaningful look before diving into business. Spinelli, ever the devoted friend, has been digging into digital trails surrounding Sonny's rivals, and what he's uncovered sends chills down Jason's spine. A network of encrypted communications suggests that shipments tied to the docks are more dangerous than anyone thought, possibly tied to international players with far-reaching influence. Jason immediately realizes that the threat to Sonny's organization isn't just about territory, it could bring law enforcement, the FBI, and deadly enemies to Port Charles's doorstep. He warns Spinelli to keep this information locked down tight, knowing the fallout could be catastrophic if it leaked. Meanwhile, at the hospital, Elizabeth finds herself pouring her heart out to Laura. She confesses her fears about Finn's behavior, her voice cracking as she admits she doesn't know how much longer she can hold everything together. Laura listens patiently, offering the steady comfort of a woman who has weathered more storms than most. She reminds Elizabeth that love is both strength and sacrifice, but also that she must protect her own heart. Laura encourages her to confront Finn honestly, to refuse to let the shadows consume them both. Elizabeth nods, grateful for the wisdom, but the doubt in her eyes reveals her fear that it might already be too late. In another corner of the city, Christina paces in her apartment, her emotions twisting into knots. The secret about Jason and Jocelyn weighs heavily on her, and though she longs to confide in someone, she knows the damage it could cause. She replays the conversation with Jason over and over, her mind struggling to reconcile what she heard with the reality of her family's world. When Molly stops by, Christina tries to act normal, but her sister's sharp gaze immediately picks up on the cracks in her facade. Molly gently presses her, urging her to talk about what's bothering her, but Christina brushes it off with excuses. Still, the guilt is eating her alive, and she knows it's only a matter of time before she either explodes or slips up. At the Metro Court rooftop, Carly stands under the string lights, staring out at the Port Charles skyline. Drew joins her with a glass of wine, trying to coax her into relaxing, but Carly is in no mood to be soothed. She admits she can't shake the feeling that something is coming, something that could shatter everything they've worked to rebuild. Drew tries to ground her with logic, reminding her that they can face anything together, but Carly's intuition has rarely been wrong. She clutches her wine glass tightly, her eyes hardening as she resolves to protect her family at all costs. Whatever storm is on the horizon, Carly intends to meet it head-on. Down by the docks, Dante keeps a discreet eye on the late-night activity. His instincts tell him something is about to go down, and when he sees a group of unfamiliar men unloading crates, his suspicions deepen. He makes a quick call to Jordan, who promises to send backup, but Dante can't resist getting closer for a better look. As he edges toward the shadows, he catches a snippet of conversation about the Corinthos territory, and his stomach knots. The words confirm his worst fears, that Sonny is once again at the center of a dangerous storm. Dante's loyalty as a son clashes violently with his duty as a cop, and for a moment, he hesitates, torn between the badge on his chest and the blood in his veins. Elsewhere, Ava returns to her gallery, still unsettled from her tense encounter with Sonny earlier. She pours herself a glass of wine and tries to focus on her next exhibition, but her thoughts keep circling back to the danger looming over Port Charles. She knows better than most how quickly power shifts can spiral out of control, and she silently wonders whether aligning herself with Sonny is worth the risk. Just as she begins to relax, she hears a noise in the back of the gallery. Startled, she sets down her glass and cautiously investigates, only to find a single red rose left on a pedestal. A chill runs down her spine. It's a gesture she hasn't seen in years, tied to a part of her past she thought was long buried. Meanwhile, at Windmere, Esme moves quietly through the halls, her footsteps echoing in the cavernous estate. Though she's been trying to reinvent herself and prove she's changed, tonight her thoughts drift back to her old manipulative self. She gazes out at the dark waters of Spoon Island, wondering if she'll ever truly escape the reputation she built. Nicholas appears, stern and suspicious as ever, and the two exchange a fraught conversation about her place in his home. Esme insists she wants nothing more than stability for her son, but Nicholas warns her that trust must be earned. Their interaction is tense, layered with unspoken history, and as Esme retreats to her room, she feels the pull of temptation whispering in her ear. Back at the Corinthos penthouse, Sonny finally allows himself a moment of solitude. He sits in his armchair, the room lit only by the glow of a single lamp, and reflects on the choices that have brought him here. For all his power, his wealth, and his reputation, he feels the weight of loneliness pressing heavily against him. He thinks of Carly, of Nina, of his children, and wonders whether he's lost the best parts of himself in his endless pursuit of control. But before he can dwell too long, his phone buzzes with a text from an unknown number. The message is simple yet chilling: "We're closer than you think." Sonny's jaw tightens as he realizes the threat he's been sensing all day has finally arrived. The sun hung low over Port Charles, casting long shadows across the manicured lawns of the Quartermain estate, where the air was thick with the scent of autumn leaves and unspoken resentments. It was Wednesday, October 1st, 2025, and though the world outside buzzed with the crack of baseball bats from distant stadiums, MLB playoffs commandeering the airwaves, the drama within these walls was a league of its own. Monica Quartermain's recent passing had left a void, but today, that void was being filled with secrets, accusations, and returns from the grave that no one saw coming. Michael Corinthos paced the grand foyer of the mansion, his jaw set in that familiar line of determination mixed with doubt. Willow Tate Corinthos, his wife, stood by the fireplace, her hands clasped tightly in front of her, as if holding on to the last threads of their unraveling trust. The night before, Michael had discovered a series of cryptic messages on her phone, texts from an unknown number, hinting at surveillance, shadows following her every move. Stalking, he'd accused her in the dim light of their bedroom, the word hanging like smoke. Now, in the harsh morning light filtering through the stained glass windows, the accusation felt heavier. "Willow, I need you to level with me," Michael said, stopping his pacing to face her. His voice was low, controlled, but the hurt flickered in his dark eyes. "These messages, they're not just spam. Someone's watching you. And if it's tied to the family business, to Sonny." "It's not about Sonny," Willow interrupted, her voice steady but her green eyes betraying a flicker of fear. She stepped closer, reaching for his arm, but he pulled back slightly, the gesture like a knife. "Michael, please. I've been dealing with this alone because I didn't want to drag you into it. After everything with the judge's murder and Drew's shooting, the last thing we need is more paranoia." Michael's laugh was bitter, echoing off the high ceilings adorned with portraits of Quartermain ancestors who seemed to judge from their gilded frames. "Paranoia?" Willow, my father's empire is crumbling, my uncle's in the crosshairs of the PCPD, and now my wife is getting stalker notes? This isn't coincidence. It's connected. He ran a hand through his hair, the weight of ELQ's boardroom battles pressing on him like an invisible yoke. Drew Kane Quartermain, his once ally turned rival, was out for blood, intent on framing Michael for the shooting that had nearly claimed his life. Evidence was mounting, alibis shaky, witnesses vanishing, and Michael knew Drew's low blow was coming. Across town, at General Hospital, the sterile hum of fluorescent lights did little to mask the undercurrent of chaos. Dr. Portia Robinson hurried down the corridor, her white coat flapping like a flag of surrender. She'd just received the call, life-changing news that could upend everything. Her hands trembled as she clutched the lab results, the paper crinkling under her grip. Curtis Ashford, her husband, was waiting in the lounge, his cane tapping impatiently against the linoleum floor. "Portia, talk to me," he said as she burst in, her face a mask of shock. It's positive," she whispered, sinking into a chair beside him. "The test. For the gene mutation. The one that runs in my family, the same one that took my mother's life too soon." Curtis's eyes widened, his strong hand enveloping hers. They'd talked about this in hushed tones after her annual checkup, but the reality hit like a freight train. Breast cancer risk elevated, treatments looming, and in the midst of it all, the hospital board breathing down her neck over the ongoing investigation into Drew's attack. "We'll fight it together," Curtis vowed, pulling her close. But even as he spoke, his mind raced to their daughter, Trina, who was already grappling with her own secrets, entanglements with art world scandals that could drag the Robinson name through the mud. Portia nodded, but inside, fear coiled tight. How could she lead this hospital, save lives, when her own was slipping away? Meanwhile, in the ICU, where machines beeped like a morbid symphony, Maxie Jones lay motionless, her vibrant spirit trapped in a coma induced by a mysterious toxin. Felicia Scorpio hovered at her bedside, her blonde hair disheveled, eyes red from sleepless nights. James West, Maxie's young son, sat nearby, his small face etched with confusion. At 10 years old, he'd already lost so much, his father, Nathan West, presumed dead years ago in a hail of bullets during a takedown gone wrong. Now, rumors swirled through the halls, Nathan was alive. Resurrected like a ghost from Port Charles's bloody past. "Felicia," a voice said softly from the doorway. She turned, and there he was, Nathan West, taller than she remembered, his brown hair streaked with premature gray, eyes the same piercing blue that had once stolen her heart. He looked older, wearier, marked by years in hiding, but unmistakably him. "I came as soon as I could." Tears spilled down Felicia's cheeks as she crossed the room in 3 strides, throwing her arms around him. "Nathan, how?" "The explosion, the body, they said you were gone." Their embrace was fierce, a dam breaking after years of grief. James watched wide-eyed, his book forgotten on his lap. This man, this stranger, was his father? The one from the stories, the hero who'd fought villains in the night? Nathan knelt beside the boy, his voice gentle. "James, I'm your dad. I know this is a lot. I was taken, hidden away by people who wanted to use me against the WSB. But I'm here now. For you. For Maxie." The boy hesitated, then leaned in, the family reunion bittersweet amid the beeps and tubes. But Felicia's joy was tempered by worry. James was fragile, already reeling from his mother's condition. What if this resurrection brought more danger? The enemies who'd faked Nathan's death wouldn't let him walk free easily. Down the hall, Dr. Britt Westbourne, Maxie's half-sister and Nathan's ex, paced the nurse's station, her blonde bob swinging with each agitated step. She'd returned from her own death months earlier, a dramatic escape from Cassadine Island that had left her scarred but fiercer. Liesl Albrecht, her mother, lounged against the counter, sipping coffee from a mug that read "World's Meanest Nana." "Mein Gott, Britt, you look like you've seen a ghost," Liesl teased, her German accent thick with amusement. "Worse," Britt snapped, glancing over her shoulder as if expecting shadows. "Nathan. He's back. And he's asking questions about me, about why I left, about the lies I told to protect everyone." Her voice cracked, revealing the vulnerability beneath her icy exterior. Elizabeth Baldwin, overhearing, approached with a sympathetic smile. "Britt, talk to me. You've been through hell. If Nathan's return is stirring things up, maybe it's time for the truth." The truth. That's what Elizabeth always preached, honesty as the scalpel that cut through Port Charles's web of deceit. But for Britt, truth was a luxury. She'd faked her death to escape Faison's legacy, the Huntington's disease that gnawed at her genes, the guilt over abandoning her son Ben. Now, with Nathan alive, the confrontation loomed like a storm. "He thinks I betrayed him," Britt confessed, her blue eyes meeting Elizabeth's. "And in a way, I did. But if he digs too deep, it'll destroy James. Destroy Maxie." Liesl placed a manicured hand on her daughter's shoulder. "Then we bury the past deeper," Liebling. "Albrecht women don't confess, we conquer." But even as she spoke, her eyes darted to the elevator, where Spinelli, the geeky hacker with a heart of gold, stepped out, his face pale. He'd been the one to tip off Nathan about Maxie's condition, pulling strings in the dark web to locate the lost agent. Now, guilt gnawed at him. "Britt," he stammered, "Nathan, he wants to see you. Alone." The elevator dinged again, and chaos erupted at the Quartermaine mansion. Tracy Quartermaine, ever the matriarch of malice, stood in the living room, her arms crossed over her designer blouse, glaring at the newcomer, Veronica Bard, a poised woman in her 60s with silver hair and eyes sharp as daggers. Erica Slezak's portrayal brought an air of old Hollywood glamour to the role, but Tracy saw through it. "Who the hell are you, and why should I welcome you into my home?" Tracy demanded, her voice dripping venom. Veronica smiled serenely, unfazed. "I'm here at Monica's request, Tracy. She left instructions, specific ones, for me to deliver after her passing. Something about loose ends, family secrets." The room fell silent. Ned Quartermaine, nursing a scotch, exchanged a glance with Olivia Falconeri, his wife, who clutched her necklace nervously. Drew, still bandaged from his shooting, leaned against the mantel, his gaze suspicious. "Monica trusted you? That's rich." She barely trusted her own blood. The grilling began in earnest. Tracy fired questions like bullets. Who was Veronica to Monica? A long-lost cousin? A confidant from medical school? Veronica parried with grace, revealing just enough, a shared history in oncology research, a bond forged in hospital corridors during Monica's own cancer battle. But Tracy sensed more, whispers of adoption papers, hidden heirs, scandals that could upend ELQ's succession. "If you're here to claim a piece of this pie," Tracy warned, "you'll find it's poisoned." As the interrogation intensified, the door burst open, and Nina Reeves Corinthos swept in, her red hair aflame against the muted tones of the room. "Everyone, stop," she cried, breathless from rushing across town. She carried a folder, her hands shaking. "I have shocking news, from Ava. It's about Rick Lansing." Gasps rippled through the group. Rick, Alexis Davis's ex, the slick lawyer with a penchant for trouble, had vanished weeks ago amid rumors of embezzlement and revenge plots. Nina dropped the folder on the coffee table, photos spilling out, Rick in a seedy motel, meeting shadowy figures, vials of unmarked liquid exchanged in dim alleys. "Ava drugged him," Nina revealed, her voice laced with disgust. "Sedatives, something experimental, to keep him quiet while she covers her tracks on the Jerome family dealings." Ava Jerome, ever the viper in designer heels, had turned on her own kin to protect her gallery empire, and now Rick was her loose end. Drew's face darkened. "This ties back to my shooting. Rick was sniffing around ELQ finances, thought he had dirt on me. If Ava's involved..." He trailed off, his mind whirring. Framing Michael was his play, but if Rick resurfaced, the whole house of cards could collapse. Olivia, sensing the tension, poured drinks, her Brooklyn accent cutting through. "Let's not jump to conclusions. Sonny's already on edge, this'll push him over." Sonny Corinthos, indeed, was worlds away, or so it seemed. In a dimly lit booth at the Floating Rib, he nursed a whiskey, his brooding gaze fixed on the door. The mob life had worn grooves into his soul, deeper since Carly's latest machinations and the feds circling closer. But today, a new connection sparked hope, or danger. Across from him sat a woman named Jacinda, a sleek operative with ties to international security firms. "Mr.